Act 2, a croquet lawn and part of the house and lake. Arkadina is giving Masha a few hints as to how a woman keeps fit. From a chance remark, we learn that she has been Trigoron's mistress for quite a while. Soren comes together with Nina, who has the opportunity of being here because her father and stepmother have gone away for 3 days. A rambling conversation is set rolling about Treplev's low spirits, about Soren's poor health. Masha. When he reads something aloud, his eyes burn and his face becomes pale. He has a beautiful, sad voice, and his manners are those of a poet. Soren, reclining in a garden chair, is heard snoring. The contrast. Dr. Dorn. Good night, baby. Arkadina. Hello, Peter. Soren. What's that? Sits up. Arkadina. You are sleeping? Soren. Not at all. A pause. Great master of pauses, Chekhov. Arkadina. You do nothing for your health. That's bad, brother. Soren. But I'd like to, only the doctor here is not interested. Dr. Dorn. What's the use of seeing a doctor at 60? Soren. A man of 60 wants to live, too. Dr. Dorn, testily. Oh, all right, try something for the nerves. Arkadina. I keep thinking that he ought to go to some German watering place. Dr. Dorn. Well, yes, he might go. And then he might not. Arkadina. Do you see what he means? I don't. Soren. There's nothing to see. It is all perfectly clear. That's the way it goes. The wrong audience may get the impression that the author is frittering away his precious 20 minutes, his second act, while conflict and climax are fretting in the wings. But it is quite all right. The author knows his business. Masha gets up. Time for lunch, I think. Moves indolently. My foot is asleep. Exit. Presently, Shamraev turns up and is annoyed that his wife and Arkadina want to go to town when the horses are needed for the harvest. They quarrel. Shamraev loses his temper and refuses to manage the estate any longer. Can this be called a conflict? Well, there has been something leading up to it, that little thing about refusing to stop the dog barking at night. But really, says the smug critic, what parody is this? Footnote, not even could a moralist note here the paradox, typical one might say, of a decaying class, the employee bullying his master. For this was not typical of Russian country life. It is a mere incident based on such and such characters who may crop up and who may not. Vladimir Nabokov, deleted marginal note, editor. And that's the end of the footnote. Here, quite simply and with great aplomb, Chekhov, the novator, reverts to the old trick of having Nina, the heroine who now remains alone on the stage, speaking her thoughts aloud. Well, she is a budding actress, but not even that can be an excuse. It is rather a flat little speech. She is puzzling over the fact that a famous actress weeps because she cannot have her own way, and a famous writer spends the whole day fishing. Treplev comes back from hunting and throws a dead seagull at Nina's feet. I was a cad to kill this bird. Then he adds, soon I shall kill myself in the same way. Nina is cross with him. These last few days you talk in symbols. Oops. These last few days you talk in symbols. This bird is apparently a symbol too. She removes it onto a bench. But excuse me, I'm too simple. I don't understand symbols. Note that this line of thought will have a very neat ending. Nina herself will turn out to be the live subject of this symbol, which she does not see and which Treplev applies wrongly. Treplev raves at her for becoming cold and indifferent to him after the flop of his play. He refers to his own oafishness. There is a faint hint at a Hamlet complex, which Chekhov suddenly turns inside out by Treplev applying another Hamlet motive to the figure of Trigorin, who stalks in with a book in his hands. Words, 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 Treplev shouts and exits. Trigorin jots down in his book an observation about Masha. Take snuff, drink strong liquors, always in black. The school teacher is in love with her. Chekhov himself kept such a notebook for jotting down characters that might come in handy. Trigorin tells Nina that he and Arkadina are apparently leaving because of the quarrel with Shamraev. In reply to Nina, who thinks it must be so wonderful to be a writer, Trigorin delivers a delightful speech, almost 3 pages long. It is so good and so typical for an author who finds a chance to talk about himself that the general aversion to long monologues in the modern theater is forgotten. All the details of his profession are remarkably well brought out. Quote, "Here I am talking to you and I am moved, but at the same time I keep remembering that an unfinished long short story awaits me on my desk." Here I am talking to you and I am moved, but at the same time I keep remembering that an unfinished long short story awaits me on my desk. I see, for instance, a cloud. I see it looks like a piano, and immediately I tell myself I must use that in a story. A passing cloud that had the form of a piano, or say, the garden smells of heliotrope. Straightway I collect it, a sickly sweet smell, widow blossom. Must mention it when describing summer dusk. End of quote. Or this bit, quote, "When in the beginning of my career I used to have a new play staged, it always seemed to me that the dark spectators were opposed to me and that the blonde spectators were coldly indifferent." End of quote. Or this, quote, "Oh yes, it is pleasant to write while you write, but afterwards." The public reads and says, "Yes, charming, talented, nice, but so inferior to Tolstoy. Yes, a beautiful story, but Turgenev is better." End of quote. This was Chekhov's own experience. Nina keeps telling him that she could readily undergo all such troubles and disappointments if she could have fame. Trigorin, glancing at the lake and taking in the air and the landscape, remarks that it is such a pity he must leave. She points out to him the house on the opposite bank where her mother had lived. Nina, "I was born there. I spent all my life near that lake and know every little island on it." Trigorin, "Yes, it's beautiful here," noticing the seagull on the bench. "And what's that?" Nina, "A seagull. Treplev killed it." Trigorin, "A fine bird, really. I don't want one bit to go. Look here. Try and persuade Madame Arkadin to say." He proceeds to note something down in his book. Nina, "What are you writing?" Trigorin, "Oh, nothing, just an idea." He puts the book into his pocket. "An idea for a short story. Lake. House. Girl loves lake. Happy and free like a seagull. Man happens to pass, a glance, a whim, and the seagull perishes." Pause. Arkadina from window. "Hello, where are you?" Trigorin, "Coming." Arkadina. "We remain." He goes into the house. Nina is left alone and broods a while on the stage front. Nina. "A dream." Curtain. Now, 3 things must be said about the ending of the second act. First of all, we have already noticed Chekhov's weak point, the featuring of young poetical women. Nina is slightly false. That last sigh over the footlights dates, and it dates just because it is not on the same level of perfect simplicity and natural reality as the rest of the things in the play. We are aware certainly that natural reality we are aware certainly that she is actressy and all that, but still it does not quite click. Trigorin says to Nina, among other things, that he rarely happens to meet young girls and that he is too far gone in life to imagine clearly the feelings of sweet 18, so that in his stories, he says, his young girls are generally not true to life. We may add something wrong about the mouth, as Sargent the painter used to say the family of his sitters invariably observed. What Trigorin says may be curiously enough applied to Chekhov, the playwright, for in his short stories, as for instance The House with the Mezzanine or The Lady with the Little Dog, the young women are wonderfully alive, but that's because he does not make them talk much. Here they talk and the weak spot is felt. Chekhov was not a talkative writer. That's one thing. Another thing to be remarked is this: to all appearances, and judging by his own subtle approach to the writer's trade, his power of observation, and so on, Trigorin is really a good writer. But somehow the notes he takes about the bird and the lake and the girl do not impress one as the making of a good story. At the same time, we already guess that the plot of the play will be exactly that story and no other. The technical interest is now centered on the point. Will Chekhov manage to make a good story out of material which in Trigorin's notebook sounds a little trite? If he succeeds, then we were right in assuming that Trigorin is a fine writer who will succeed in making of a banal theme a fine story. And finally, a third remark: just as Nina herself did not realize the real import of the symbol when Treplev brought the dead bird, so Trigorin does not realize that by remaining in the house near the lake, he will become the hunter who kills the bird. Is that dumb fucking bitch? Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that out loud. In other words, the end of the act is again obscure to the average audience because nothing can be expected yet. All that has really happened is that there has been a quarrel, a departure settled, a departure put off. The real interest lies in the very vagueness of the lines and in artistic half-promises. Act 3, a week later, a dining room in Soren's country house. Trigorin is breakfasting and Masha is telling him about herself so that, quote, "You, a writer, can make use of my life," end of quote. From her very first words, it transpires that Treplev has attempted to commit suicide, but his wound is not serious. Footnote. Note that according to the rules, which I dislike so intensely, you cannot make a man kill himself between the acts, but you can make him make the attempt if he does not die, and vice versa. You cannot have a man bungle his shot in the last act when he retires behind the scenes to make an end of it. Vladimir Nabokov in a deleted passage, editor. End of footnote. Apparently, Masha's love for Treplev goes, for now she decides to marry the school teacher in order to forget Treplev. We learn further that Trigorin and Arkadina are about to leave for good now. A scene between Nina and Trigorin follows. She makes him a present, a medallion with engraved the title of one of his books and the number of a page and line. As Arkadina and Soren come in, Nina hurriedly leaves, asking Trigorin to grant her a few minutes before he goes. But note, not a word of love has been spoken, and Trigorin is a little obtuse. As the play proceeds, Trigorin keeps muttering under his breath, trying to remember what was that line on that page. Are there any books of mine in this house? There are, in Soren's study. He wanders off to find the required volume, which is the perfect way of getting him off the stage. Soren and Arkadina discuss the reasons for Treplev's attempted suicide: jealousy, idleness, pride. When he suggests she give him some money, she starts crying, as her son has predicted she does in such cases. Soren gets excited and has a fit of dizziness. After Soren is led away, Treplev and Arkadina talk. This is a slightly hysterical and not very convincing scene. First move, he suggests to his mother that she lend some money to Soren, and she retorts that she is an actress and not a banker. A pause. Second move, he asks her to change the bandage on his head, and as she does so, very tenderly, he reminds her of an act of great kindness which she once performed, but she does not remember. He tells how much he loves her, but now the third move. Why is she under the influence of that man? This makes her cross. He says that Trigorin's literature makes him sick. She retorts, "You are an envious non-entity." They quarrel fiercely. Treplev starts crying. They make up again. "Forgive your sinful mother." He confesses he loves Nina, but she does not love him. He cannot write anymore. All hope is lost. The undulation of moods here is a little too obvious. It is rather a demonstration, the author putting the characters through their tricks. And there is a bad blunder directly afterwards. Trigorin comes in, turning the pages of the book, looking for the line, and then he reads, for the benefit of the audience, "Here it is. If any time you need my life, just come and take it."